Make a choice to begin anywhere in your life, and the next chapter of your journey has begun. And along the way, be open to being inspired. Listen to the conversations led by Dr. Wayne A.I. Frederick, Howard University Interim President, President Emeritus, and Charles R. Drew, Professor of Surgery, on The Journey.
Welcome to The Journey. I'm Dr. Wayne A.I. Frederick, Interim President of Howard University and the Charles R. Drew Professor of Surgery. As we enter the season of reflection and gratitude, I'm reminded of the extraordinary power of generosity, how the simple act of giving can open doors, strengthen communities, and change the trajectory of a student's life. At Howard, we see this every day. Philanthropy fuels our mission. It empowers our faculty, enriches our programs, and most importantly, supports the remarkable students who are the heartbeat of this institution. Today, I'm joined by our Vice President of Development, Princess Gamble, and a current Howard student, Savannah Montgomery, whose story speaks to the transformative impact of donor support. Together, we'll explore how giving, whether through financial resources, time, or mentorship, helps to sustain our historic university's future and expand the pathways that lead our students toward purpose and possibility. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for all you do to keep Howard moving forward. Let's begin the conversation. So first, let me start with you, Ms. Gamble. What role do you think philanthropy should be playing in sustaining Howard's mission and advancing our student success?
I think philanthropy is at the core of everything that we do. We have to own the success of Howard. We have to own the advancement of our student and the advancement of our mission within our own community. So philanthropy is foundational to, like I said, everything we do in the build, in the sustaining of the legacy, and in the future of what our students achieve.
And so, Savannah, maybe you could tell me a little bit about what exactly you were thinking about when you were coming to Howard, of doing what you're doing now, and how donor support you think has helped you fulfill your dreams or even broaden your horizons.
Okay, starting off with why I wanted to come to Howard. So I went to predominantly white institutions, my majority of my whole education, primary and secondary, and then in the sixth grade, I had the opportunity to experience the complete opposite and go to a predominantly Black preparatory school in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And that completely changed my outlook on education and the type of spaces that I want to immerse myself into when I'm older and how I want my career to be. And so after experiencing that, I unfortunately had to go back to Kansas and go back to what I knew. But I was like, I'm going to make my way back to that space regardless. And so my mom taught me about Howard University and how it was the biggest and the bestest, most prestigious HBCU that you could go to. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go big or go home. So that was always my goal. And I applied to Howard. I got in, and in the beginning, I was always gonna go into psychology. I was a little bit on the fence at first. I'm an artist, so I wanted to go into the School of Fine Arts at first, but I thought psychology would be a bit more practical. So I went there, went that route, and I was gonna go to the law school route as well. But I was like, I don't really want to be a lawyer. So it was actually last semester I took, it was a family human development class, and I learned about families and risk and resiliency. And I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to work with families. I want to work with children because I love children. And I was like, I don't necessarily want to be a teacher. I don't want to be a lawyer. I need to find something that bridges that gap. So I was like, social worker. Perfect. I can deal with children, but I could also kind of work in the legal field if I wanted to, and be a client advocate for juveniles or children in adoption agencies or children coming from unfortunate backgrounds. So,
Great.
yeah.
So it sounds like you got here and your goals expanded. And when you think of funding your education and getting support to fund your education, how has that support been for you?
The donor support, it's definitely given me it gave me definitely a new outlook on my education and my experience at Howard and how I want to go about it. As someone who's come from a low income household with a single mother, money has always been a huge challenge. And if I'm being honest, since freshman year here, it's been the biggest challenge each semester. So this semester, getting my balance down low enough with the scholarships to the point where my mom can finally got approved for the Parent Plus loan, and I can register for classes. It really meant a lot because it allowed me to focus on my studies more. And also other goals such as or joining other organizations and outside opportunities that will help me, that will push me onto my career path.
Excellent. So, Ms. Gamble, when you meet and hear from students like Savannah Montgomery, it really brings to light why the overall support of what we do for students, institutional dollars, but also donor dollars, really comes together to help frame those. We recently got an extremely great gift from Mackenzie Scott, which is unrestricted gift. How does that shape your approach to building out that entire donor pie? Not everybody's going to call us up
Yes.
and write us a check for unrestricted 80 million, but
Exactly.
we are going after small donors and big donors. But how does something like that frame, what you're thinking about how to
So
do
when you
this?
think about a gift like the Mackenzie Scott gift, it's transformational. It allows us to affect change, make systemic change, make improvements. But I think of it really almost like your household. If you get you have a big repair and you fix your roof, it doesn't mean that you stop paying your utilities, etc. So you need the smaller gifts and the consistency to continue to flow so that you can have resources for students like Savannah who are dealing with these challenges on a daily basis, so that they can have the types of support they deserve in order to focus on their studies, but also be able to immerse themselves in the culture of Howard. So when I think about the big Mackenzie Scott gifts, yes, we will make big changes. You will guide us in a direction around how those dollars and resources will again affect change. But I really want our community to know that their smaller gifts still really matter because they're consistent and and we can depend on those.
Right. Now, there are a lot of gifts that are smaller than 80 million.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
of those gifts, how do you see donor priorities impacting what it is we do? What do you think donors are looking for today, and how are we be able to supply that to
I
them?
think donors want to know that their funding and their support changes society. Donors are looking to move the needle on societal challenges all the time. They really want to know that what we do with those dollars matters, and they want to have that trust in us. They want to know that students like Savannah are getting what they need to go to school. And we have to be able to communicate that effectively to them at all times and let them really be confident in our ability to come up with the big ideas, the big programs, the transformational movements that will, yes, change society, but make sure that everyone has equal access to education.
So, Savannah, you're one of those students that's going to go out in the society and change it, especially when I think of what you're talking about doing in terms of being an advocate for instance, adoption agencies or kids who are up for adoption. I mean, those are the unseen within our society, and you're willing to go represent them. If you had the opportunity to speak to a donor, what would you tell that donor about how their contribution is changing your potential impact on society?
I'd first just tell them thank you. I I don't really think words can truly express how grateful I am, especially with everything going on over the summer. I'm sure y'all know, social media, everything on the news about financial crisis, and during that time, I was not in a very good place. So getting that scholarship really just means that I have to put my best foot forward and have a tunnel vision to my goals, no matter what happens. Because from what I've seen, that no matter what happens, I'm going to be good regardless. I'm still here. I'm in my third year. I'm going to get my degree. So to my donors, just know I'm doing it for you.
I
Doing it for you.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
And so, VP Gamble, one of the things that we talk about all the time, on the team is how do we go out and secure those gifts? The fact that our base of support first has to be strong, and that means our people in our community. So, we appreciate the support that Savannah will get. We want her to become an alum who goes out and contributes. But what messages do you have for the alum to ensure that they're going to put their best foot forward as alum to make sure that when we do go out to try to get that $80 million gift, we have a significant amount of support behind that to make the argument for the change that we've been making?
I think one of the first things we have to dispel is the myth that the gift has to be huge. I really want to lean into the appreciation we have for gifts, no matter what size they are. I also want to lean into the fact that consistency matters, but it's also owning the mission, owning the university in a way that you take responsibility and you feel like it is worth your while to support Howard. Donors, Mackenzie Scott we know, is an outlier, but donors look to the institution or the university's community to support it first. They want to know, especially those who are accustomed to being philanthropists, they want to know, how does your community support you? Because it speaks volumes about the trust that your community has in you. So I really think our community has to understand that first, yes, your gift, no matter how small, is invaluable because they all come together and they're powerful once we collect them. But also that the outside world is watching and they want to know that Howard University believes in Howard University. These bison and their knows, I am sandwiched between two. I always think about in the rooms I go into, and you'll hear the cry and you'll hear knows no matter where you are in the world. And I just think if I got $1 for every one of those knows, what a real impact it would make. So that's what I really want the community to understand, the power of their giving.
All right, that's absolutely fantastic. Now, Savannah, you're one of our many students. I'm sure you have conversations with other students, about their circumstance and who have probably benefited in the way that you've benefited. I want you to fast forward 10 years from now. Whoever the female president is at Howard writes you a letter and says, Miss Montgomery, you received a donor scholarship once at Howard, and you were very appreciative, and now we need you to give back. What's your response? What's your motivation? How do you intend to stay engaged and to support?
The way I intend to stay engaged is by educating and uplifting the next generation, especially my little siblings. I want them to go to higher education. I'm on my little sister right now about applying to these scholarships, getting into school. She's actually graduating high school early like I did, so kudos to that. Um, but yeah, because like I said, I love children. I have a passion for children, and after us, they're going to be running the world. So you have to set them up for success, and with that is higher education. I believe that's with HBCUs, diversity, and also empathy and kindness. Empathy and kindness, yes. And the power of giving, teaching them to give back and to treat people how they want to be treated. And of course, I'll throw in some money too.
We appreciate that. I appreciate that especially the first part, because at the end of the day, it's about building community. A lot of times we talk about fundraising, and I want to make the point that a lot of our alums go out and provide service. One of the things I would love to see us do is to bring to fruition a day of service, and that day when students, alum, faculty, our entire community, friends of Howard, could be out doing service, and we can actually count those service hours, because a lot of times we go into neighborhoods and communities where they need us, and we don't really do a good job of cataloging, what we do with that. So with that in mind, as well, when you think of some of the priorities as we go into this next year, and clearly the political climate is different, and I do want to set this out because I want both of you to respond to this. The caps that will be on loans, and the goal here is the concern about the cost of higher ed. So the administration has decided that they're going to put caps on loans. They've redefined some of the professional degrees as well, which means the caps for some of the graduate programs are going to be even lower. With all of those things in mind, what are your priorities for how we will navigate that new space of how young people are going to try to fund their education, and what is the case we're going to make to donors in that environment?
I also bring to light that our current class is 48% Pell Grant eligible. And when I think of our fundraising initiatives, it will be divided into three buckets. And of course, student access, or really funding student education, is going to be critically important at all levels. So I really, again, that is going to lead our case. The next, so scholarship, et cetera, scholarship and living expenses. The next phase would be around academic programming. Howard has to stay on the forefront of preparing students, and that costs. I don't know that everyone realizes what it means to stay innovative, and the fact that that really does cost to attract the best people to Howard to teach our students. And then lastly, for Howard, infrastructure is going to be critically important. Our facilities need improving, our systems and processes, we're working closely on that. But all of these take resources. Howard has spent decades of doing really great work, but being under-resourced in that work. We hear, some of the comments that are made, and I talk to folks all the time, and I let them know, the reason why it doesn't work the way maybe you're used to in your grad school is because Harvard is doing the job of 50 with maybe 5. And so that is critically important.
Very good points. This recent discussion about capping the amount of loans, you mentioned that your mom was able to take out a plus loan after the donor scholarship support, which is fantastic. The Trump administration is suggesting changing what that cap is. You're interested in going to graduate school to get a master's in social work. They've recently been looking at changing what the professional nature of some of those degrees are to take that cap down even lower. What concerns do you have about how funding your education would be with those caps, recognizing that the goal is to lower the cost, but the reality is that the sticker price will be well above, what you can afford, and without donor scholarships, you won't be able to fill that gap. So I'm just curious as to what your mindset is, what you hear from students, but how much concern do you guys have about these changes?
Hmm. My concern is that I'm gonna have to do the struggle all over again. That's definitely my biggest concern. But again, with getting these donor scholarships, I have a new outlook on my career journey and my education, definitely a new positive outlook that keeps me pushing forward. So I may have to struggle again, may have to look at new pathways, new options of how to pay for grad school and to get my master's. But at the end of the day, that's going to be the goal, and I'm going to have a new positive outlook on it and just keep going. That's as much as you can really do. Is just keep going. And regardless, my passion is social work, whether they think it's professional or not.
Excellent. I agree with you. I think it's professional, by the way, if you ask
It
me.
is.
But, as we think about this new era that we're going to be in, I do think our appeal to some extent to donors is going to have to be different.
Yes.
What was already a necessity and almost a crisis now is going to be a massive potential crisis.
Yes.
You look at something like paying for medical school in a 4-year period, that cost could be easily 350 to 400,000. And if you have loans capped at 200,000, that you take away a significant route for lower income students who may not have another path. And of course, let's be clear, I'm not insensitive to student debt.
Yes.
We want to keep that low. How do we reshape or at least massage that narrative to get people to understand that urgency and why they should give in this era?
I think raising the notion of what the impact of these students is on society and how it is different. The students that come out of Howard University will be those that will go to underserved communities. They will be the ones that will go outside of just making money and do this as a passion. I think reshaping that part of the narrative and having donors understand what it means to have a Howard educated doctor and where they will take their skills is going to be critically important. The other piece of it is really of raising to private philanthropy that this is now a critical time. We are now in a crisis, and here is how you can join us to help us meet this crisis. I think, and Dr. Frederick, you'll know this better than I, the most of our med school, if the is the stat, 80% of our med school students are dependent on loans to go to med school. So if we're going to have doctors of color, that it's going to be critically important that we all, again, join forces and look at how these students are educated, but also through the impact and who they will affect change for. Mhm.
Now, Savannah, you mentioned that you had an experience during your K through 12 education where you were in an environment with people who look like you, similar background, and that really influenced you to want to come to an HBCU. And Howard, there's a lot of hype around this place. I tell people it's a great place to be. I probably am the hype artist to begin with. Having said that, though, you've been here. Describe the Howard magic to someone who you think may be in the situation you're in, looking to come to Howard and isn't quite sure about it. What is it about this place? What did you find here that you think absolutely makes it the right place for you and for others?
I found a family. That's what I found for sure. I met the best people I think I've ever met in my life, my best friends, just a group of people who are always there for me, support me, who love me. And that's something that I wasn't really familiar with at prior schools where I didn't see myself in other people. So coming to Howard, it's definitely about the family and support and the connections that you make. People who really want to see you go far in life, like not just, here, not just telling you things to tell you things, like they're telling you things to lift you up, to push you to be better. So it's definitely the family. That's the magic, is the love that you get.
And so, within a family, there's a lot of argument about direction, what we should do, how we can do it. The Mackenzie Skirt gift was great, but there are lots of other gifts that we've received
Sure.
recently. What are some of the gifts, some of the types of gifts we've received recently that you think have made an impact on campus, whether it's with facilities, programming? What are some of the other gifts you'd like to highlight for our listeners?
I don't want to necessarily just highlight our large gifts, but I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Bloomberg and the fact we've talked a bit about the College of Medicine, but the massive effort across the country with all four HBCU med schools that they have taken steps to ensure that this part of the population has access to education and that their student debt is lower, that they can come out and be focused on being doctors. Those types of gifts are critically important. But then you look at, again, just the consistency. I have several donors that I've looked at over the last 10 or 15 years that have just given consistently every year, quietly, usually don't tell me how I should get it or how we should spend it, etc. But they're just giving because they know that the student scholarship piece is important. And that's where we see a lot of our giving is in endowed scholarships. There is a lot of trust and a lot of belief in our students here at Howard. So those are some of the gifts that I think are really, really quietly just impacting and just moving needles.
Now, internally, we obviously have to use our faculty, students to participate in the process. You're wearing your Howard sweater today. Savannah obviously is bleeding Howard blue. As we wrap up, I'd love for you to tell us why Howard today. Why today? There's so many other things that are drawing people's attention in the society that they're concerned about and want to pay, want to give their money to. But why Howard in particular?
So I wasn't smart enough to come to Howard, but I am from the DMV. And so I have many best friends. I'm married to a bison. And when I look at what they all share, what you all share, commonly in that love, the kinship, but also just looking at Howard as being chosen as number one or selected as number one in changing the economic standing of its students. When you look at those things, and like Savannah said, the love that is between the alumni here, the network that comes with it, but then also the change that Howard, like we have the first African American vice president. So when you look at those things, you can say that Howard moves the needle on a daily basis. One student that I know very well told me when coming here that they feel seen. And when in this time in society where students are going to places and being educated in places where they're often not seen, personally, that is a critical mission for me, educating African American students and making sure that they're able to get all that they came for is a personal mission.
Absolutely fantastic. As we close this conversation, I want to thank my guests for joining me and remind you of this thought. Don't underestimate the extraordinary power of generosity and how the simple act of giving can open doors, strengthen communities, and change the trajectory of someone's life. I'm Dr. Wayne Frederick. Thanks for joining me on this episode of The Journey.
This program was produced by WHUT and made possible by contributions from viewers like you. For more information on this program or any other program, please visit our website at WHUT.org. Thank you.